We're fed up with these people, So it's a civil war, and that's why when Imran Khan says, "Oh, I can end it in 90 days," or we just have to engage with talks and the militants. Talks are not enough.
Welcome to Correspondents. This is our first episode, and we decided what best to begin this whole series than with Pakistan. Pakistan is going to see a historic elections tomorrow. A lot of people are calling historic, and we decided to start this format in which we're going to have 2+2. That's 2 insiders, 2 correspondents, and 2 people from outside discussing a week's relevant issues. So we have with us Smruti Patnaik. She's a research fellow with IDSA, and Emmanuel Derville. Am I getting it right? He's a French journalist based in Pakistan, reports from Pakistan, married to an Indian, so that's the reason he keeps visiting Delhi on and off, who's just come back from Pakistan, so we're going to have some fresh sort of perspective in terms of what's happening on ground. And of course, joining me from Tehelka is Tehelka's bureau chief, Brijesh Pandey. Let's begin with Emmanuel, who's just come back. Emmanuel, tell me, is Mr. Imran Khan coming, or does he really need the support of Mr. Nawaz Sharif, or is it Mr. Nawaz Sharif who's coming and needs the support of Imran Khan?
It's indeed very hard to say. Various polls are saying that Nawaz Sharif is going to win the election because he's very popular, but we have to take into account the electoral system in Pakistan. As you know, it's a system where the winner takes it all. So if you win the first round, you got the seat to the National Assembly. So it doesn't mean that because a particular leader is popular nationwide, that each candidate in a particular district will win the election, the legislative election. So we have to be a bit careful about these opinion polls who say that this leader and this leader is popular. So I think it would be very risky to point out that yes, okay, Imran Khan will win the election, PTI will have the biggest number of seats, or Nawaz Sharif will have the biggest number of seats. We'll have to wait definitely for the result, I think.
Okay, before we proceed further, Smruti, you've been working on Pakistan for really long. For our viewers, could you explain us in terms of how does the electoral process work? Because we know that both the assembly as well as the parliament goes to vote simultaneously. So how does it work? What is the system? Is it a bit like India, or if it isn't, how is it?
I think, the process is definitely a bit like what it is all over the South Asia. The same voting age around 18. And the process is same, of course they have a caretaker government, which we do not have. And Bangladesh had a caretaker government, which is now abolished. And one also has seen an interim caretaker government taking over in Nepal. So most of these countries where, they don't have much faith on the election commission, or as an institution, the election commission is not very strong. In those countries, they are basically, trying to have a transitional interim government to hold the elections. That is number one. Number 2 is that if you look at the parties, which are the parties, major 5 political parties which are contesting, the Pakistan People's Party, which was in government in the last 5 years. Then you have the PMLN, the Pakistan People's Party has some sort of alliance with the PMLQ, especially in Punjab. You also have the MQM and ANP, which has been alliance partner of the Pakistan People's Party in the last government. And similarly, you also have alliance in different places, like in Punjab, the PMLN is going alone. But if you look at PMLN, it is going along with 10 other smaller political parties in rural Sindh. It similarly has, alliance with Mengel's party in Balochistan. But again, in KP, it is going alone. Now, if you look at Pakistan People's Party, it has its traditional alliance, and the surprising part which I find in Pakistan elections is that even 2 days before the elections, they're still having seat adjustment. Like for example, the ANP said that
with from PPP in the Sindh,
from 2 seats they are going to withdraw. Now, if you look at the election scenario in total, you also have Fazlur Rahman Party. Now, when you look at the right,
that's
votes,
MQM.
No, it is Fazlur Rahman Party, the JUIF, Jamatul Ulama Islam, Fazlur Rahman. Now, Fazlur Rahman Party is strong in especially the FATA area, where there are 12 seats, and this is the first time the political parties are contesting in the elections. 98 is when the direct election was introduced in FATA, and this time the political parties have been introduced. So there is a likelihood of JUIF dominating the FATA area, and the KP probably will be dominated by the Imran Khan's party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. But when you come to Punjab, if you look at the southern Punjab, that is where the likelihood of contest will be taking place, especially the Pakistan People's Party and the Imran Khan's party, the Tehreek-e-Insaf party.
Hmm.
Now, who are the winning candidates for Tehreek-e-Insaf? Now, Tehreek-e-Insaf has actually, many people in Pakistan say most of the turncoats or the people who are dissatisfied with their
other
parent
parties
party have joined the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, and therefore these are the candidates, irrespective of the party affiliation they will win the seats on their own, because they have that kind of influence in that area. But on central and north Punjab, I see the PMLN getting more seats, and in rural Sindh, that is the base of the Pakistan People's Party. So it is likely that most of the seats in the rural Sindh may be retained by the Pakistan People's Party. Urban Sindh, again, you have MQM still dominant, maybe few 1 or 2 seats here and there. And so therefore, for me, I actually do not see, like the people are saying that the PTI tsunami is really going to take over and all. Now, this particular political party has been existent for more than 15 years. Why now? Why suddenly Imran Khan has become so important, and why suddenly I have not been able to understand that people will have suddenly have so much of faith on Imran Khan's political party. The thing is that here most of the people, having kind of assessment based on the urban cities where definitely he has followers. Now the thing is that will this translate into vote? Like if you in the past in Pakistan elections, if you have observed the religious political parties, when it comes to the street power, they're very, very powerful. But when it comes to in terms of vote, they have not got that much of vote. Yes, perhaps Imran Khan will be much more important compared to the past elections, but I really do not see it is the tsunami is going
but
to
really
really
there is also saying that there's a lot of talk about the unprecedented number of people who are young or below 35, and all of them, like there's a huge talk of most the first timers and the kind of aspiration levels they have, and they want to vote for Pakistan. How much credence do you find in this assertion which is made by most of the political analysts coming from Pakistan?
Look, when you look at the urban areas, the youth who are much more aware of their political rights, but sometimes I also find the youth also very apathetic as far as voting is concerned. So, you have to divide it on the rural and urban youth. 25 million are the new voters who are at the age of 18 to 29 as per one of the report, because there are many reports. Now, PMLN...
But you also have 40 million fake who have been taken off the electoral register.
Yeah. So therefore,
almost nobody knows what's happening.
If the urban youth is going to vote for PTI, the rural youth one doesn't know whom they are going to vote for. So therefore, to many, Imran Khan is not, will not be considered.
The way it is
so therefore, I have a bit of doubt.
Well, actually, I think I just come back to your previous point about the Punjab. I really think that in central Punjab there will be a really tough fight between the PTI and the PMLN. And I remember when I traveled to Faisalabad and Lahore, it was really striking to see that when you talk to people from the popular section of the society, but also the young people, it was just between PTI and PMLN, that's it. And it was very surprising to me whenever I was meeting some poor people or basic workers who before were voting for PPP, and now they were telling me, well, we're going to vote for PTI. So the PMLN will have a very tough fight in saving its seats in central Punjab. That's definitely in the urban areas of central Punjab. That's for sure. So in this case, the PMLN could lose some seats to the PTI in these areas. That's possible. Now, yeah.
Let's just to give a little shape to the whole discussion. Let's speak each party-wise instead of just talking about Imran Khan, which seems to be the flavor of the season. Let's start with PPP, which is very interesting. Aisha Siddiqa wrote this piece in Tehelka this week, in which she points out towards the leadership problem, the leadership crisis of PPP in many sense, because the Supreme Court of Pakistan has barred Zardari from directly participating in the elections, because he's supposed to be holding the presidentialship, which is a non-biased sort of position, so he can't be directly involved. And because of threats to your Bilawal Zardari Bhutto, he can't be directly involved, and he's only been sort of addressing press conferences. And of course we know that TTP has directly threatened PPP from participating, along with two other parties, ANP and MQN, from participating in these elections. So what is the biggest crisis for PPP? Is it, of course, it's sort of anti-incumbency, corrupt image that's there? Also, is it because there is a big leadership crisis within the party? I mean, we begin with Smruti.
I think yes, to a large extent there is this leadership crisis, and that is also mixed with this performance of the government in the past 5 years, especially the corruption, the issue of energy shortage, which actually has influenced many of the people's mind. I also have seen, I somehow feel the Pakistanis are also very, very they're not very tolerant or don't have the patience, because I remember many of the time, people say, oh, this government is so corrupt, and they won't mind supporting an extra constitutional kind of intervention. Like you have seen the MQM and PTI in between saying that if the army, if they will be supportive of the, if the army decides to take over. Now, this also has encouraged the extra constitutional forces in the past. But as far as coming back to the leadership question, yes, as the president of Pakistan, he cannot participate in the elections, and Bilawal, as you rightly pointed out, because of the threat on his life, he also cannot participate. But that is also case with most of the other political parties, like MQM.
That's exactly my point. Let me on Bilawal. Is it a digestible excuse that there is a threat to his life? That's the reason he can't be participating, because there are threat to lives of other political leaders in Pakistan as well, and they are, to an extent, still canvassing and sort of asking for votes. But this guy, does it sort of give any credence to this rumor that was floating around that he's unhappy with his own father about how the party is sort of functioning? What do you think is?
I would give credence to the theory of threat to his life rather than, because in the politics anything is feasible, anything is possible, and the father and son having a bit of difference and then coming together is not something which is very difficult to think. But I do think there is genuine threat to Bilawal's life, because after all, in the last election he has lost his mother, and the Bhutto thing is already there. It is a kind of brand, like the Gandhis here. So therefore,
perhaps even more stronger than the Gandhis.
That is why it's not surprising.
Gandhis can lose their seats in there.
But Emmanuel, one question I would like to ask: if the brand is so big, but if they are not able to encash that brand, then doesn't it present a very strange kind of dilemma for the PPP?
Yes, it is a dilemma, but it's also an investment for the future.
Yeah.
You see, the problem is Bilawal Bhutto, first of all, is too young, and he's the last, basically, hope of PPP. He is the Bhutto, he's the last Bhutto product, if I may say so. So the PPP cannot afford to lose him. That's very important, and that's why they need to protect him. But coming back to your previous question about the PPP, I would say that the biggest problem of the PPP is not only the lack of a leader, charismatic leader, as Benazir was very charismatic, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was. The problem is also the ideological problem of PPP. Now the socialist discourse of PPP has become an empty shell. It was always portrayed as the party of the poor working for the betterment of the masses, and now after 5 years of no electricity, a very weak economic growth, the popular mass of Pakistan, I think, have started feeling that now this party is not working for the poor anymore. But I'm talking about the urban. For the rural areas, it's a bit more difficult. The problem that we have is that the media in Pakistan are closely following urban areas, not so much rural areas. So it's difficult to have a very accurate view of what's going on there and what the people are going to vote for. And secondly, we should not also underestimate the fact that over the last couple of years, the PPP government has enforced this Benazir income support program, which is basically giving cash without any strings attached.
It's the Narega of Pakistan, yes.
And this program was basically aimed at protecting the PPP vote bank. And it may help the PPP to protect its vote bank in rural Punjab, in rural Sindh.
So we might see a surprise, not a completely decimated PPP?
Not a completely decimated PPP, and I would also say that even if the PPP lose completely the election, let's say that scenario where they completely lose most of their vote banks, they'll still be the biggest party in the Senate with 41 seats.
Yes.
So, and you cannot basically govern in Pakistan without the Senate. So any government which will come to power will have to work with the PPP.
Let's take up Nawaz Sharif's party next, PLM, and of course we know Punjab the last government was headed by his own brother. A lot of people are saying he perhaps going to come to power, but with struggling. Let's begin by you. You just came back from Pakistan. What is the mood? You spoke about PTI versus PMLN in Punjab and all these areas. Tell us a bit about what you've been sort of getting the vibes from on the ground.
Well, as I said, in central Punjab there will be obviously, I think, a tough competition between the PMLN and the PTI. As far as KPK is concerned, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, this northwest province, I realize that indeed in district D, the Jamaat Islami is very influential, so we cannot exclude Jamaat Islami getting a couple of seats from this area. PTI is also quite popular. After all, this party is criticizing drone attacks and the war on terror and the war against the Taliban for so many years, and it's perfectly understandable that the local people from this province are fed up by this war. They are bearing the brunt of it. So in this regard, I do not exclude the possibility of PTI and Jamaat Islami gaining some seat from KPK. Okay. That's sure. Now, as far as Sindh and Balochistan is concerned, I'm less familiar with it, but it's common knowledge that this is basically Sindh there's a stronghold of PPP and MQM. So we'll see how it will change. To one last point, I think is very important about KPK and Sindh was that the MQM and the ANP, our National Party, were completely prevented from campaigning during this election. I mean, they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And for sure, the ANP has a very bad image now in KPK. They didn't achieve much. The situation is difficult economically speaking. Terrorism is still there. So ANP will probably lose badly in KPK. And that will benefit probably PTI and Jamaat Islami. But we'll see how it could turn out.
What about the role of this Pakistani Taliban? I mean, they are preventing this ANP and other parties from doing it, and the couple of parties which they have not targeted is PMLN and this PTI. So, do you think that they will also? Is there some kind of a tacit understanding between the Pakistani Taliban and these parties, and they will post their win if suppose PMLN on PTI comes to power or become the largest party? Will the Pakistani Taliban also get some kind of help or something like that?
Well, it's difficult to talk about a tacit understanding because conspiracy theories are very popular in Pakistan, but they're always difficult to prove. So I would not take this word, but I think you're right. Obviously, the problem is that by not targeting parties like PTI, PMLN, and Jamaat Islami, the Pakistani Taliban, whether they want it or not, have helped these parties, and they prevent the opposition parties, ANP, MQM, and PPP, from campaigning. So I think in a way they have done it because PMLN and PTI are claiming that now the war against TTP, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, should stop because now it doesn't work. It's not worth it. So in a way, I think they try to favor this party, hoping that the next government will be more sympathetic to them and will accept that talks could happen with the TTP on condition posed by TTP. But it doesn't mean that this will happen because the army, the Pakistani army, has still very much to say about the security situation in Pakistan. And I don't think that they will probably appreciate a complete end of the war against TTP. After all, they lose a lot of men in this war. They know that it's not over. They have been very adamant on it. So it remains to be seen how the high command of the army will see that. On the other hand, it's also, I think, important to mention that the war against the Taliban inside the Pakistani army was not always very popular. In 2009, I remember very clearly that when the army went to Swat to invade Swat and get rid of the Taliban, we started having these conspiracy theories all over Pakistan saying Taliban are Hindus, they Indian agents paid by Indian security agencies. And it's very simple why we have these conspiracy theories. Because it was also a way to convince the Pakistani soldiers that they are fighting a valuable enemy. I remember, stories, I don't know, maybe it's true or not, but it was confirmed to me by the spokesman of the army in Swat, confirming that before going to Swat, the army had some problems because soldiers were saying, we don't want to fight. These Taliban are our brothers, they're Muslims, why should we fight them? So, in a way, this means that if ever there are peace talks with the Taliban, maybe some soldiers, some low-ranking officer will be sympathetic to it. That's possible.
But is this a new phenomenon, or has this happened before? Whereas a Taliban or a terrorist organization has openly favored one party and completely forbade other parties from contesting? Or is this a new phenomenon which we are witnessing in this election?
I think this Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan is also a very new phenomenon. It's not such an old phenomenon.
But I'm just saying that has it happened
yes,
before?
the militant organization, for example, in the southern Punjab areas, the PMLN also has some
the
sort
Shipahi,
of alliance. Which is now known as Al-Sunnat Al-Jamaat. It has a sort of understanding for few seats which is known. And second issue is that if you look at PTI, now PTI is part of Defy Pakistan, which consists of many of the banned militant groups. So
That's
this
true.
Nexus between the political parties and militant groups have always been there. So it's not something that to that extent new. But this time this the TTP has taken a very different view, like as he said, favoring certain political parties, because the offer for talks which the TTP gave, he very openly they asked people's name, that is one of the was Nawaz Sharif and Fazlur Rahman to mediate between them and the Pakistan army. Of course, that did not go anywhere because Pakistan army thought that these people are not serious. But the offer of talk has always been there. Sometimes the government offers, sometimes this the first time the TTP offered. So therefore, I think this nexus has already been there. Apart from this, this question of incumbency factor, what is affecting these three political parties also, they have not been able to campaign in a manner in which. But then going back to 2008, even the 2002 elections, so most of the political parties, their leaders were not there, so they did not campaign in 2002 elections. But in 2008 elections also, most of the leaders just came back a month before the elections. Both Nawaz Sharif, I think, came back in October, if I'm not mistaken, with first time he attempted in September, then he was sent back, then again he got back, and because of some sort of understanding, Benazir Bhutto came back. So these are the political parties who were not present for a long time, but yet they canvassed and succeeded. So therefore, to some extent, I will say that okay, they have not been able to canvass, but there are traditional vote banks for these political parties. So there are local leaders who must have gone and canvassed for themselves, even if the leaders have not been able to.
On their behalf,
So therefore, I'm not very sure that it will affect the prospect of the electoral prospect.
But people do say that ANP otherwise, while it had a government in KP, that it didn't do well even then. So that might just also become an anti-incumbency factor for them.
Yeah, but their leadership have been consistently attacked in the past 5 years.
That's to the Bilor brothers,
Bilor, I think he survived.
One survived, but one was killed.
Yeah. So the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan have always attempted on the ANP leaders, especially it becomes easy for them because they go also to the tribal areas and all. So it becomes easy for them to target. And ANP also, for the first time in 2000 elections, had 2 seats in Karachi, which it never had, and that therefore you had a lot of this ethnic tussle in Karachi between the Pathans and the Muhajirs. But that undercurrent has already been there. It was present because the truckers and everybody was the Pathans, and the Muhajirs were not. They felt that business interest is being taken over by the Pathans. But that was also a policy during General Zia's time to dilute the MQM constituency. By letting
bringing
the Punjab, the Pathans come and what. But now many people also from the tribal area, because of the army operation, also have migrated to Karachi. And because like I said, before there were Pathans are there, so that kith and kin they have come and settled, and therefore that was first time the NP got 2 seats. It has never had seat. It was MQM's constituency.
Let's talk about Nawaz Sharif. In the last segment, we'll speak about Imran Khan and PTI. The last question on Nawaz Sharif in this segment.